So we open with finance, where public priorities meet private capital. This panel brings together voices from banking, telecommunications, and risk management, driving capital access, financial resilience, and cross-border recovery models from ECOWAS to East Africa and beyond, shaping the systems that run and that turn financial risk into lasting resilience. I'm honored to call to the stage our panelists for Access Finance and Finance Recovery, Honorable Boima Kamara. Please join us on the stage. Thank you. The Director General of West African Monetary Agency, WAMA. Ms. Cynthia Kropac. Thank you. The former Chief Enterprise Business Officer of Safaricom. Mr. Aron, Structured Credit Solutions, Aon Israel. And our moderator, Mr. Daniel Berkove, CEO, Pivot Industries, former S&P Global Lead Advisor, and Regional Head for Africa and the Levant.
Just getting organized. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for coming here today and being part of our audience and listening to this very important panel. Thank you to Sherry and to Hilly as well for putting together this very important event. We've already had some words of introduction, so I'll be quite brief. Why does this topic matter? Well, finance powers everything. Daily operations, project development, and especially major infrastructure projects in energy, in logistics, in digital infrastructure, things which are important, but especially for Africa, it's essential. Our panelists bring deep practical experience to this topic from three different angles. We have Boima from government, Cynthia from industry, and Aron from risk management. And by the end of this discussion, I hope that you'll understand the real dynamics of accessing finance in Africa, the risks, the opportunities, how to navigate them, how to negotiate them, as well as the importance to access to finance of finance recovery. And so now let's begin. Boima, I'm going to ask the first question to you because the government is at the root of all things connected to access to finance. The room has got a number of African experts and people have spent a lot of time in the continent, but not everyone is. Maybe you can tell us about WAMA and ECOWAS and what the connection is to access to finance.
Thank you, Daniel. Greetings to all of you. Shalom. I count it a joy and an honor to be seated for the first time in the Holy Land. And I just want to say a big thank you to the Develop Group, to Emily and her staff for getting us here. And just looking at where we are seated, it is the Africa-Israel Economic Forum. And if you look within the 26 letters of the alphabet, each of those letters, A, that positions the first letter, I for Israel, the 9th letter in the alphabet, E, the 5th, and F, the 6th. It gives you 1956. And there is a special historical event that took place in 1956, the Suez Canal. Israel had to intervene when Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal. And that in and of itself is a gateway to economic transaction. And today, we are discussing in the same period of history, 69 years on, regarding Africa-Israel relationship, creating a path for a better future for our both peoples. And it's an honor that again history is repeating itself of the significant role Israel brings to bear on the global stage. And we are grateful to God for that. Because, and I think I had to premise my introduction that way because we believe in the Lord Almighty. The people who will bless Israel, they themselves shall be blessed. And we take that lightly. And that I come now to where I come from. We belong to the African continent, a subsection of the African continent, West Africa. Is the Economic Community of West African States called ECOWAS. Is the bloc that represents 15 countries. And it's blessed to have a population estimated to over 450 million people. You can imagine the potential it brings. And has a combined GDP of over 800 billion. That's the economic potential we are talking here. And the role of WAMA in this sphere, in this role, in this overarching quest for a better future of livelihood is to integrate West Africa monetarily and economically. By that, there is a goal to launch the single currency in West Africa called the ECO. And the time horizon is 2027. We've been on this road for quite some time. There has been 5 postponed dates. I believe the cautious, optimistic approach has led us to having 5 postponed dates, and we believe that this time around, despite all the issues, the rules that must be followed, 2027 is the set date set by the heads of state and government, and the role of WAMA in this case, we are fine-tuning all of the regulations, so access to finance is key in this process. So the regulatory framework across all of the banking sectors across member states, we are now deriving what we call the Model Banking Act that addresses the constraints in terms of movement of capital across borders. That harmonized framework is all part of a central theme. We are also working towards the establishment of the ECOWAS payments and settlement system. It is that platform that seeks to ensure for inclusive finance, the digital role that must be brought to bear on making sure that the almost 55% of adults in Africa unbanked, how do we close that gap? Ensuring that SMEs, smaller businesses that are key and central to a larger segment of the informal population, how do we bring them into the formal system? All of the associated impediments in terms of collateral requirements. So we think the role WAMA and the ECOWAS Commission at the highest level is playing is to ensure that we bridge access to finance for all. And these are the established structures and framework we are working through. On that note, this would be my preliminary response. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your very warm words. Also, I have to say, I've never heard gematria in English before, but if it's going to be heard anywhere, it's going to be heard in Israel. Shiri, quick question. How much time do we have? What's our clock? Or Hilly?
Yeah, you have about another 25 minutes.
25 minutes, okay. We have to speak very quickly. Aron, can you tell us about Aon, what your work is doing as an insurance broker that helps facilitate access to finance? We share 2 mics.
Good morning, everyone. Aon is the largest insurance broker in the world, and I specifically deal with credit and political risk insurance. And when I say political risk insurance, sometimes it can be simply to protect assets and investments, but the vast majority of what we do is actually used as security for financing, including a lot of financing that is done with Africa. I would say that since we don't have a lot of time, The purpose of the insurances that we deal with is to bring a transaction in Africa to the risk level that it is on a par with a transaction anywhere else in the world. Because if there's any specific African risk of a particular country, we know how to mitigate that in insurance so that the investor, the exporter, the bank, they...
So I think we should just share one mic.
Is that better? Yeah, okay. So, to reiterate, the purpose of the insurances that we put in place is to bring the transaction in Africa to the same risk level than it would be for a transaction anywhere else in the developed world. This can be for investors that have assets, it could be exporters that are doing trade with Africa, and most of what we do actually goes to financial institutions who are financing these transactions. So what we do is to mitigate the country risk, the economic, political country risk, so that it is on the same level as a transaction anywhere else in the world. The rest is details, a lot of them.
Thank you. I'm going to want to ask you how you see the difference between Africa and the rest of the world, but I first want to go to Cynthia, who actually has experience with that, working both in the United States and in Kenya. Can you tell us a little about you? Maybe first, how did you get to both countries at the same time? But then your experience working in both environments and what it was like through both corporations when you tried to access finance, how it worked, what was similar, what was different.
Yes. Shalom.
Shalom.
When I was growing up, we would sing that in the morning, Shalom, all my friends, and now I'm in the Shalom land. So it's
And you're with friends.
and amongst the friends that we said till we meet again, right? So thank you and good morning, everyone. How did I go from Kenya to United States on Pan Am Airlines?
Wow, you just dated yourself. I'm sorry.
On KLM, I should have said that. I left Africa in 1987 and re-entered to do business and commerce in 2022. But I was still stuck in my mind in the world that I left in 1987. And you come in with the thought that you're going to bring technology, you're going to bring ingenuity, you're going to come and save, you're going to come and help advance. And I found a very different world than I had imagined in my head. I found a world that was very progressive, very innovative, energetic and hungry, but working with constraints. Constraints on capital, constraint on access to information, and that made that job much harder. And the lesson for me, and it was an important lesson, and I'm a native African, but coming after a very, very long time, is the sense that you're bringing the solutions that Africa needs. Actually, the solutions that Africa needs will have to come and be co-created from Africa itself. I worked most recently for a company called Safaricom, and it's a telecommunications company like any other around the globe, except it's also running one of the largest financial institutions in the world, at least in Africa from an African perspective, called M-Pesa. And I was telling my colleagues that I've been with during my time here that M-Pesa actually was not an idea that originated in Africa. It originated in Europe. It's an idea and a technology and a capability that had cachet on virtual money, on virtual financial transactioning. But it really took root in Africa. And really the message for me
Maybe you can just say briefly what M-Pesa is, because
does everyone know it? See, that's the thing, when we think
that's
who
why
doesn't know
that's
it?
why I'm here.
So M-Pesa is a mobile money. For people today who say Apple Pay or Alipay or any of those types of virtual money transactioning, quite frankly, M-Pesa predated all of those, and quite successfully. And as opposed to a store of value that you use occasionally, M-Pesa is actually woven into the fabric of our lives. It's not only how you pay at the store, it's how you pay school fees, it is how you save and store your money. For many cases, for the unbanked, it is their bank, right? And transacts over $450 billion annually. In a country of less than 50 million people, in a country where the GDP is less than a quarter of that. So this tells you how integral that is. And the real opportunity that I see in the partnership, and I'm very grateful for Healy and Shiri and Emily and the whole team that is helping accelerate the idea of what a partnership with Israel and Africa can uncover and unlock, is the co-creation of the capabilities and the ideas that you have, but how they can be amplified in a localized context. M-Pesa is a great example of that from the world that I came from. But it's not just one example. I can tell you as a telecommunications company how important connectivity is. But it took a Chinese company, actually, I think it's a guy who's running a shop. If he has 10 employees, I would be shocked. But he came into our environment and beat us at our own game. Right? He was able to have more than 20x the number of customers that we had taken 10 years to build. He did it in less than 6 months. But where did he change it in? He localized and contextualized how distribution needs to change. Right? And we were still trying to employ a methodology that we all knew and understood very well from telecommunications. Of course, this is how it works in Europe. This is how it works in the United States. Why will it not work in Kenya, as an example? And while we're there boasting about we've connected 300,000 people to the internet, he then stood up and said, I've connected 3 million and I'll have 1 billion, right? And so the reality is there's an opportunity for us to do different in co-created models that are localized in context and built for scale, moving beyond projects and moving to platforms that work for all as a win-win.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. I think one of the themes that's coming out of the discussion so far, very early in the day, is that Africa is a little bit like Israel. We combine the old and the new. Mr. Mehetu said that there's this idea that a lot of people have that Africa is sort of this backwater, but we see that it's actually not. There are a lot of problems, but there's a lot of ingenuity, and a lot of the future is being seen today in Africa. So I'd like to ask, go back to you, Aron, and ask the question. How do so Africa is again, people have this idea of Africa. How do global insurers see Africa? Are there challenges that as a broker you see which are specific for risk insurance that you see specific to Africa? And is there a difference also between real risk and perceived risk and real risk?
I would like to start with the difference between perceived risk and real risk, and I'm putting on my glasses, and I've got some numbers here for you. Okay, according to the IMF, the average lending rate in 2023, we're not doing well. When I bashed it on the table. Yeah, okay. The average lending rate in 2023 for 19 African countries was 25%. In India and Vietnam, it was 9%. No business can afford to borrow at 25% unless they're doing something highly illegal. Okay, that's a gap which is irrational. It makes no sense at all. Moody's have done some research on the default and infrastructure projects. In Africa, it is 5.5%. In Asia, it is 11.9%. And in Latin America, 14.5%. So the message from that is very clear, is that the risk in Africa is actually a lot less, I repeat, a lot less than it is in other regions of the world. And if you're looking for defaults, speak to some of the investors who recently lost $10 billion on First Brands, which, by the way, is in the United States. And you can add to that Saks Department Store and Tricolor. So when we speak to financial institutions, of course, I'm going to praise our little corner of the world, because the insurance world, in particular the ones that I deal with in the political risk and credit, they are actually a little bit more receptive towards doing business in Africa. So they will charge more than in other parts of the world. But it's not the difference between 9% and 25%. It could be the difference between 1% and maybe 3% or 4%. But then when you go to the financial institutions, the people actually have to put up the money, and we're insuring it. So as I said in my opening words, okay, the insurance will make sure that the risk profile of the transaction is the same as anywhere else in the world. But when you speak to them, and if the hurdle rate for many investment funds is, let's say, 10-12% in the developed world. When I spoke to one investment banker in New York, and we work with them, okay, they like us, they know us very well. He simply said, no, because our investors won't buy into it. Why? Because it's Africa. I spoke to the head of one of the largest institutional investors here in Israel, and she said that 20% will not be enough to get the investor appetite and for them to put money onto it. And again, I'm coming from an organization which will insure the country-specific risks. So it is forget about the African risk. We've taken care of that, okay? But they still want more. We have to put on the table an issue here which is very unpleasant. I work for a financial institution, and we're sitting in a very, very respectable law firm. Let's just call it bias, okay? It's there. It's big, and it's irrational. But the positive part of that is, of course, is that it's also an opportunity. Because if we can come in with finance, which is between, let's say, about 15%, which is very, very profitable, believe you me. If we in the insurance world, we're taking 3-4% of that for risk, you still got a 10% return on your capital. And we can then deploy that capital. We are going to clean up the market. We're now starting to work in it. I'm not saying that it's easy, but the opportunities are there, and it can be done.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, thank you. It sounds like what you're saying is that there's a bit of a narrative issue that Africa is facing, which is something that Israel, I think, can relate to. Unfortunately, but like you said, it's an opportunity. I want to ask you another question while you have the mic, and while the mic works, about data. So when you're insuring risk and you're looking at African risk, any sort of risk, you need to have good data in order to provide the best bang for the buck, both for yourself as well as for your clients. Africa still is a data poor society. So how do you deal with the issue of getting data in a place where there actually isn't a lot of data?
Well, there isn't a lot of data, but there is data. But I want to separate here between the large infrastructure projects, which tend to go on macroeconomic data and government involvement. That the data there for Africa is the same as anywhere else in the world. It's available. It becomes a bigger challenge when you go down to companies. Safaricom would most probably be easier because it's big and well known. But we're working now with a client of ours, and they had some very nice business in one particular country, and I sent it out to the London markets, and I was very, very surprised to get a yes. And I spoke to the underwriter, and they said, well, you know, we know them. The other people have been doing business with them. So the data is there. There's not quite so much of it, but often there's sufficient data there for an underwriter to make a decision and to insure the risk. And I would think, and I would hope, that with AI, that will become even better, because the data doesn't always have to be official. It can also be the sort of footprints that any decent business leaves around, and then you can gather that information and make a decision.
Boima, you need a lot of data as well. You've got your 15 countries, different cultures, different histories, different languages, different everything. And you've created this, it's ECOWAS, and you're trying to bring everything together. Data is actually central to it, for accessing finance, for harmonized regulations, for everything. How do you deal with that? You need to collect the data. You need to make sure that that if one person says X, it's X in another place. You need apples to comparison. So how do you deal with this enormous challenge?
Thank you. Very good question. On the question of data, within West Africa, what we are currently doing in advance of the launch date of the ECHO 2027, we've begun the process of what you call data harmonization across member countries. As we speak, we are currently, with the ECOWAS Commission, I must first state, data improvement has gained significant advance. All of the data today, as we speak of recent, just 2 weeks ago, the regional economic outlook for Africa, the data set contained in those reports from the IMF, they are African-driven, because if we move across each of our member states, the submission of those data come from national authority working with the IMF staff. So in my previous role as Minister of Finance and also Deputy Governor from the Central Bank, what we have now succeeded in doing at the level of the ECOWAS, you have what you call the ECO base. That ECO base has brought to bear a synchronization of every data set across monetary and financial statistics, price statistics, BOP, balance of payments and international investment position, the external sector statistics. So what that simply means, it is no longer orange being compared with apples. It is ensuring that apple is apple, consistent with international best reporting. As we move along this, it is the investment piece towards data development. And this is where greater emphasis has been placed. We must begin to put money into the data piece to ensure for better policy formulation and advice, and to inform econometric forecasts.
That's great. So you're not just collecting data which will work in ECOWAS. It's sort of an Esperanto of data which works all around the world. I was just told we got 5 minutes. So Cynthia, I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to ask each of you one last final question, which I want all you to answer quickly. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Cynthia. Given what Boima said, is coming from the investor perspective, are you sold? Do you think ECOWAS, WAMA is going to do it, which would make it, which will fulfill the vision that they've set for themselves? Such that you'd want to invest in the ECOWAS region, and you'll feel confident that what you're doing can be spread across 15 countries.
I have to be optimistic about it.
Good.
And I am. Because in business, and I'm sure all of you as business people will agree with this, is when you do business, you're doing business with the person, right? You're believing in the person on the other end of that table. I believe in the guy, right? I believe that if you have the right people at the table willing to do the right things and to push for the right things, it's going to be good for us as a continent. We're way too fragmented. And part of the opportunity for Africa is our ability to come together as a unified bloc, to be able to have the type of scale that brings the possibility, the scale that will attract the capital, the scale that will allow us to become self-reliant, as well as the promise of not only what we could do for ourselves, but also what we can do and enable for others. You heard when Mamo spoke, and he said a quarter of the population will be in Africa. The reality is within the next 30 years, in some of our lifetimes, the workforce of the world will be in Africa. So it's not just that it's a quarter or a third of the world. It is 75% of the population under the age of 35 will be in Africa. And therefore, this is the population that we must feed. This is the population that we must house. This is the population that will need healthcare, that will have to build the economic frameworks to be able to conduct commerce more effectively and efficiently. We have to buy in those rails that will make that possible.
This is the future, it's creating that scale.
Absolutely.
One minute, since I asked a tough question, I'm going to give you the last word. No, I'm going to ask Cynthia, Aron, but you get the last word.
Okay.
So 2 minutes left. It's a little over 2 minutes, it's okay, it's Israel. Last word. So the topic is accessing finance. You've got the Israeli business world here who's interested in investing. Just a couple words. What are some last thoughts you want to leave with the audience here?
Fantastic looking group, by the way. I was a salesperson, so to be able to say something good will also earn me something good back. But we have created a lot of frameworks within Kenya and around my fellow African countries that is allowing you to do business more effectively and a lot more easily. Kenya, for example, is the one I know the best. You can establish your business and have it running digitally. And there are agencies that are there to help you be able to do that. And if not, there are people like myself that are more than happy to connect you through the structures that are able to do that. For many, it's, hey, I can get my money in, but can I get it out? I was just in a roadshow in the United States, and the chairman of our securities exchange emphasized to the audience that we now have the ability to have you repatriate your investment in no less than N+1, right? So same or next day ability to repatriate money. So we're open for business. We're facilitating the ease in which to do business. When you see organizations like this that are facilitating the partnerships, we start to create access to information, access and knowledge of who are the companies and who are the players, so that we can facilitate and accelerate those connections and grow and develop our businesses. We're open for business. And if you don't buy that Africa is where you need to be, by God,
Open for business and facilitating ease of business. Great message. Thank you. Aron.
I'll just follow on from what Cynthia says. I mean, the opportunities are there, and they are huge. A lot of the risks can be mitigated. I'm not whitewashing. I'm not saying that everything can be done and everything's perfect. But there is enough business in Africa which can be insured, which can be financed. And I have to add another thing is that Europe and the United States are on the way to an awful fiscal crisis. Anybody who reads The Economist of last week shouldn't sleep at night. And in addition to the direct hit that we're going to take from higher interest rates and inflation and all the rest of it, any drop in demand from our two biggest trading blocks is going to hurt us a lot. We live on international trade, so we have to push for new markets, and Africa is there waiting to be developed. Go for it.
Great message. Africa can be developed, new market, $3 trillion. Can you recommend a good insurance broker for us? Boima, please.
Thank you. I would just further support the call that Africa presents the future. Certainly, the regulatory environment is improving. Your capital is gaining greater confidence in terms of respect for free movement of capital consistent with Article 8 of the IMF call for ensuring that capital movement across borders should be unhindered. So the laws are being improved, the environment in terms of cost of doing business is improving, and in terms of specificities, sector specific, I would say if you are looking to invest in agriculture, food processing, look towards Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, as in the case of West Africa as a bloc. If you are looking for areas of investing in renewable energy, power, look towards Senegal, Ghana, and Nigeria. In the mining and natural resource, look towards Guinea, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia. In fintech, look towards Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal. In infrastructure and real estate, look towards Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria. In the context of tourism and services, Kenya, you can look towards Cabo Verde, the Gambia, Liberia, Senegal, Kenya also. I conclude on this note. Africa is the future. Shalom.
Great message. Eugene, I hope you were taking notes for the bank. The regulations are in place. Africa is the future, and the future is now. Please give a hand to my panelists. And thank you for joining us for this discussion, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.